There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
Ooh, what's up, and welcome to episode 130 of the Program Guys podcast. I'm Patrick Hertzberger, and joined with me today, as always, is Ryan Tyson, Matthew Gann, and Mark Hall. As we've already noticed, no Mason Prince this week, unfortunately. But nonetheless, we have a great show for you. How we doing, Ryan?
You know, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. I've had better weeks, but we're going through it. It's a little bit less hot here in Dallas, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
So it's not 100 degrees and scorching. It's only like 93, which is nice. So yeah, we're surviving, I would say. Maybe not thriving, but we're surviving.
Love to hear it. Matt?
Yeah. I had a really good fourth weekend. Got to go back home, see some fireworks, see some family and friends. It's always good to take off work and trying to get settled back in, and nothing better than joining my guys, talking some more OU football this week.
Mark, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. Work's picking up. It's not fun.
Yeah,
No one likes
bummer.
that, right? Just one of those things.
Especially after the
really,
fourth.
yeah. Really excited to hang out with the gang, though.
Love it. I've got a question for you guys to kick it off. But before we do, remember to follow us on all of our social media sites. That's Program Guys with a Z on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc., etc. And you can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast. That's Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and things like that. Guys, are we headed into the most exciting football season we've ever lived? Think about it. Like, since we have been born, is this the most exciting football season?
No.
That's a hot take. Let's hear more.
Maybe.
Please
yeah.
explain.
Why no, Ryan?
I think 2008 for me. I remember that year very specifically because that was the year we lost to Florida in the championship game. Big bummer. But that was the Sam Bradford year. That was the leading into we were playing Texas Tech, who is the #1 seed at home. That is still the most electric home game I've ever been to in my entire life. And I guess I was 16, 15 at the time, 15. So I remember that year specifically because I was like, oh man, we have all of like the elements here, and like the Big 12 was still kind of the Big 12 with, like all of the big players still in there. It hadn't completely broken apart. So I remember that year specifically. And then, but I would say that this is a very exciting year. I'm not as confident as I was and I'm not as confident in this team as I was in that team. Sorry to be a downer.
No, you bring up
I
a
think
good
that's
point,
a good
'cause,
question.
look, I imagine that you and Matt have memories of OU teams that Patrick and I just don't really share because I was like vaguely aware of Oklahoma football before I like dove into Oklahoma football, right? And so while I can like appreciate it from behind, the excitement thing doesn't really exist for me. But
Sure.
you talk about that Texas Tech team had Michael Crabtree. That's that team was incredible. So I can
#1 coming in Norman.
That I also think, man, if this is the most, I'm not really viewing it that way. That's not how I'm viewing it.
Take yourself out of the I'm an Oklahoma fan. Just general college football. Is this the most exciting season overall we've ever headed into? We've got a 12 team
that's
playoff.
kind of that's
SEC's
kind of a
changed,
different
Big Ten's
question.
changed.
It's a different
question.
Well, never
very
specified
interesting.
OU, but yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I guess we just assumed, right?
Yeah.
Matt,
Sorry,
what do you think?
that's my fault.
No
It's
worries.
just like no.
I liked that. I wanted to
Patrick-
let you keep going because that's an interesting topic as well.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I
Matt, what do you
appreciate
think?
that.
I'll take over because I knew what you were talking about. I could see telepathically
Yeah.
what you were trying to tell me.
Say that again.
What I
What
will
was
tell
that?
you is that this is the most exciting season of college football ever. Two things come to mind. One, all of the conferences that are being aligned and merged. And the second, college football coming out on the console for the first time in 11 years. When you have that kind of backdrop and the excitement and hype, I mean, I was just looking the other day on Twitter, October 12th alone, might be the greatest college football weekend in history. It's OU Texas, it's USC Penn State, and then there's a couple of big, I think it's Ole Miss and LSU. I can't remember who it is, but a couple of big SEC matchups on one weekend. And they're going to be pretty big games when you think about it. So I think with the merging of the conferences, seeing these teams actually get a chance to play each other, and there's going to be big game football every single week, week in and out. And then I can play college football on the Xbox or PlayStation midweek, going up to the moment on Saturdays. You can't beat.
Love
You
it.
can't beat this year.
Speaking of someone you might be able to play with in a year from now is new commitment. Omarion Robinson has officially committed to the University of Oklahoma. He's a 4-star safety, 6 feet tall, 185 pounds. We've
Did
talked
Mark
about
even
him.
get to talk about your question?
Yeah, he tuned in here.
Good pivot.
Tuned in.
Good pivot.
When you
I
see
like
the
it.
pivot, you pivot. You know what I mean?
You know, I love it,
Took
Pat.
advantage.
Yeah. Anyways, Omarion Robinson, we've talked about him a lot over the past few weeks, being crystal balled. Mark, what are your thoughts about Omarion coming into OU?
Yeah, that's actually it's a ball that I dropped myself in I think the hours leading up to the commitment. Just things felt good, you know. When things feel good, that's when your balls start to drop, honestly, if you know what I mean. And I'm really excited about his addition to the safety room moving forward. He joins a class that I think so far only has Eli Bowen committed at the safety position, and he's coming off of the Rivals 5-star camp where he was named the MVP of the entire camp. He is someone who you should expect to see rising up the recruiting rankings. And just to give you some context, because I think that he is the perfect example of a player that Oklahoma's in the running for because of the move to the SEC and or Brent Venables and co, right? You have to go back to 2019 for Oklahoma to have gotten a player in the top 10 in the state of Arkansas, according to 247 Sports. That's a long way back for a state that is next door to Oklahoma. So you can see that, you know, obviously they're building inroads with Arkansas kids in a way that had kind of fallen off under the previous regime. And two, you have to, because that's where you're playing now. We're going to be playing at Arkansas in 2, 3, 4 years. So I am very excited about his addition to the class, not just because of what he brings, 6 foot 185. I mean, that's basically what Peyton Bowen is. He's probably a little bigger, but he's got time to grow too. And I'm also excited about what it portends for the future. You know, I have a larger point too, but I want you guys to talk about Omarion Robinson. Matt, what do you think?
I was going to go in a grander scheme of things. We talked about Emma Jones landing some fire the last few weeks and past year. Let's talk about the job that Brandon Hall has done. If you think when he's come and transforming the safety room since 2022, I'm going to list the guys that has led to a lot of guys coming in. So 5-star Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears Jennings, Jaden Harden, Reggie Powers, Michael Bokanowski, Omarion Robinson now, Marcus Wimberly, and Eric McCarty. So that is quite the list of 4 stars and obviously 5-star Peyton Bowen a few years back that Brandon Hall has been able to recruit and get these guys in the room. That's a pretty deep list along with Emma Jones. That just shows you that it's not just BV in the SEC. These individual guys on their skill positions have been incredible the last few years. And this is exactly what you need. You need top 10 classes when you're playing SEC opponents each week. Incredible job by Brandon Hall and company. This guy is a great addition that we were able to pluck out of Arkansas and will continue to have a deep safety room for future years to come.
Thanks, Matt. For anyone wondering why Matt keeps saying Boeing and not Bowen, it's just because he's really high on the Boeing stock currently. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Omarion Robinson?
Sorry, I was just imagining like the Boeing logo every time Matt said that just like pops up. We love you, Matt. I think Mark talked really well about this guy. The one thing that I really love that we're doing is like we're getting these like #1 recruits in different states. So he's the #1 recruit in Arkansas, right? We talked about a few weeks ago the #1 recruit in Minnesota that I think we pulled.
last year.
I want to say that was a while
Yeah,
ago.
Wyatt Gilmore was a class of 23 guy, or 24 guy, but you might be thinking
Who am
of
I thinking of?
Darius Afalava, who was the #1 player in Utah, I want to
Yeah.
say.
Maybe,
Yep.
maybe
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking of. We're we are, I feel with this, and I've said this before, but this coaching staff has been able to go across the entire country and pull people in, and they're pulling the best from the states. Are we pulling the #1 player in like Georgia and Alabama? Maybe one day. We're not there yet, but we're like working our way there, and we're keeping our recruiting in Oklahoma as well, and still able to bring in, the DFW Metroplex, which is a huge area for us. So I'm just like, I'm really happy to see like the diversity that we're able to pull in and the skills that we're able to pull in from other places. And then uh I want to, what were you gonna say? Mark, you look like you're about to say something.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Keep going, Ryan.
Okay. So yeah, I'm excited about this guy. I think he's gonna be great. And I had another thing at the tip of my tongue I was gonna say, and I completely spaced. It's just been one
Am I
of those
back?
days, guys. So that's what I'll
Am I
say
back?
about him.
Yeah.
Yep, you're back.
Okay, cool. Then I'll take over from there. I'll carry on. One, I think that Ryan is 100% right. You're seeing us make these inroads in states where, I mean, Utah, name a guy that's come from Utah. I didn't do the numbers on that one when we got Afalava the other day, or last week, but I promise you it's been a minute since we were a force in Utah to be reckoned with. And now we are. And it's an interesting difference because I think that Texas has always had that sort of in their quiver just by virtue of being the University of Texas. They have the most money, the best facilities, yada, yada, all the stuff. And it seems to me, while they're also able to take advantage of the SEC, upgrade, the boost that you get, we're sort of capitalizing on it a little bit stronger than they are. And I mean, it's July of 2024, and the class of 2025 isn't going to be on campus for another 8 months. So none of this is really locked in yet, but the trajectory of these things, it just feels really strong for Oklahoma.
Agree.
I,
No, yeah, go ahead,
I,
Ryan.
I want to add that I wasn't a crazy person. There's a crystal ball out there for Cade Petrazak. I don't know. #1 player in North Dakota. That's who I was thinking of, not Minnesota, North Dakota. They're close.
The OU insider gang.
Yeah.
They drop double balls at the same time for him.
They-
I always feel like
they
their
did.
balls, it's got to be like one ball, right? We can't.
It's
That'd be like
pretty-
if
it's
Matt
pretty-
dropped his
it's pretty
Omarion
early,
Robinson ball the same
so.
day. At the same time I did.
Agree. Another player, though, who got crystal balled from the North, Nebraska this time, Christian Jones,
North?
linebacker, 6'3", 205 pounds. This is really good size coming into OU for the linebacker position, potentially. Mark, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I actually when Buzz started around him, I think it actually was the OU insider gang that I saw it first from, and I was like, that feels a little unlikely. It feels like the kind of guy that we've been burned for before, guys that land at like Clemson or Georgia or something like that. And it's starting to seem a little bit more likely. I mean, that's the Brent Venables effect at linebacker, right? Is you might be able to get in on a guy that you should not be able to get in on. And it's interesting that we're also making those inroads in with Nebraska, right? Because Cade McIntyre was the first player, or no, Caden Helms was the first player in a while to come from Nebraska. And since then, Cade McIntyre's come in, someone I'm forgetting, and now Christian Jones is possibly, right? I mean, Nebraska's in that recruitment, Auburn's in that recruitment. There are teams that are really recruiting forces right now that are trying to get this kid too. Fingers crossed, right? I haven't dropped a ball yet on this one. I'm actually a little bit more confident on the Cade Pietrak guy than I am on Christian Jones, but he's, if he wants to commit before he starts the school season, then we're going to know fairly soon.
I do want to say one thing about, and this is related to the thing I said earlier that I like completely spaced about and had a brain fart. I love that we are like every single guy that I've seen for like crystal balls and like dropping commitments have mostly been 4 stars. And I know we don't have the 5 star yet, right? We don't have the 5 star in the 2025 class. I know there's a few feelers out there and a couple people we're after. But the fact that like, we talked about blue chip ratio and we talked about how important that is and how much we've improved over the last couple years, like we're bringing in tons of 4 stars, like tons and tons of them. And while that maybe not be as flashy as what we've seen in the past, where we bring in a 5 star quarterback or, like 1 or 2 5 stars, and then some of our other places we're not able to get more 4 stars or our blue chip ratio is not all the way there. I really like that it seems like we're trying to level out like at that level. We kind of have a floor that we're going after. And I know that we're going to bring in like 3 star recruits and everything like that. And some of them are going to turn out fantastic. But I think we're elevating in our recruitment when it comes to what we expect you to be at when you come into the University of Oklahoma.
It sure seems to me like we haven't taken on a 3-star without it being a PWO more than a handful of times since
Not
Brent
that
got
I've
on
seen.
campus, right? That first year probably, right? But since then, you're right. The floor is certainly raised. Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, to hit on Christian Jones, he's the #1 linebacker coming out of Nebraska. He's also a dual sport athlete, so he also runs track and field. So
Oh,
based on
number one.
what I've read about his scouting report is that he's got a unique skill set, that he's big and fast, which is very hard to find at his size. And the fact that he's running, I think it was like 11 seconds in a sub 100. Yeah, which is pretty phenomenal for the guys his size. So this is the type of guy that can definitely make an impact that you would want on your field, especially playing linebacker, especially in BV's system where you want a highly athletic guy such as Christian Jones, who would be a great fit for this defense and what BV is looking for. I don't have too much expectations knowing that Nebraska is right in his backyard and probably will lean towards that way, but that would be a great get for BV and Co. if we can get him out of Nebraska. The one other point about 5 stars, and Mark, please chime in on it. I know we missed out on one 5-star offensive lineman. Is it Roger Lamont to Missouri? Is that who it is?
The other way, Lamont Rogers.
That was close.
That was
close.
hey,
That
that
was
was
better.
closer
That one made
than the
sense,
ones
yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
So I think there's 2 other guys, 5-star offensive linemen that OU is in the race for, and I think we really got to pick up one of those guys, right, Mark?
So there are sort of 3. I mean, Ty Haywood is a name that we were linked to much
Right.
earlier in the process.
Early,
Seems to
yeah.
be out of the process now. Michael Fasusi recently tweeted something like,
He says big news comes out on Friday.
big news comes out on Friday. Yeah. And we'll see what that is. I'm sure that's like an announcement to an announcement. Like that's the top 10, that's the top 5, something like that.
it's still an
And then we'll get a bigger, or he'll announce his commitment date. Maybe that's what it is, right? That in either case, that's something, right? And then there's someone else whose name is just escaping me. And he's from Kansas, I think. I mean, I'm bad at this right now, right? But there's someone from here. Someone else speak on those 2 guys.
Well,
Yeah,
I
while
think
Mark is looking that up, actually, I think you should like and subscribe to the program. That's Program Guys with the Z on YouTube, and follow us on all of our social media accounts. That's Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok.
The Andrew Babalola.
I think
Matt,
that's
what were
it.
you gonna say?
That's Kansas City.
Kansas
So-
City. Yep, that's the one. I'm not very familiar with his game, but he is someone that we are more recently in recent weeks being linked to. And hey, if we just get one, man, I'm psyched. But we
Yeah.
got to get one.
we got to get
were
one.
in we were in and investing in too many of these guys to not come away with a single one. That's going to be a failure. And I'm not a person that thinks you get rid of Bill Bedenbaugh like because of that, but that's a failure in a recruiting cycle to be in on that many guys and not be able to close a single one. Ryan Foge's good. Ryan Foge's the top ranked player in that class right now. But if you can get one of these guys on top of that, you are really building something strong up front.
Yeah, and we were in on, this is not offensive line, but Jonah Williams we were in on for a while, and then that's now leaning towards A&M,
Still might
right?
be. Still might be. There was actually a prediction today by an Oregon insider that he lands at Oregon. So, you know what he's doing is what Brent Venables tells everyone to do is enjoy your recruitment, take advantage
Shop
of the
around a
process.
little bit.
And when you're ready, we're still here. I'd be shocked if Brandon Hall was not in contact with Jonah Williams. And if Skip Johnson was not in contact with Jonah Williams. I'd be shocked by that.
Anything else on crystal balls or recruiting? Love it, baby. We thought it'd be fun to play a little game because SEC Media Days is coming up next week. And that game is, if you were a media reporter, what are a couple of questions you would have for any of the coaches or players there? Or,
Real fast.
and also don't box yourself in, Mark. What else would you like to add?
Yeah, don't mark yourself in.
Yeah, no, one thing. If you're listening, we wanted to get credentials for
Right.
SEC Media Day and try to pull it off. And, just film everything we did as we went and make a whole thing of it. We'd fly Patrick out. It would be great. And we genuinely have no idea how. The website is not clear. We are not media savants at this. We're clueless. And so if you know how, reach out and you'll be the program guy of the week for sure. Guy or gal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that.
Good play.
Matt, let's start with you. What are some questions you would have for a player or coach at SEC Media Day?
Just go one at a time.
Yeah, I'll do one at a time. I'll do player first.
Yeah.
Because I assume the main guy's going to be there, like a Billy Bowman, a Danny Stutzman, like the leaders of the team and those senior, especially the senior leadership coming in. So my first question would be, since the SEC schedule came out, excluding Texas, what game would they be most forward to playing to, either home or away? Because I know when this schedule first came out, I'm sure it's very exciting to see who's obviously coming into Norman, but also the games they're going to have to play on the road. For instance, going to LSU to Baton Rouge, right? That's a iconic college football stadium. Most likely could be a night game. Could have college game day, depending on where teams are at. So really would like to hear where the players would feel or what they're most looking forward to game-wise heading into this year.
Question real quick. We haven't announced the 4 players who are taking the Media Day, have we?
Not that I've seen.
Do you think we bring Jackson Arnold?
I would assume so.
I thought you said, okay, hold on. Yes, Oklahoma has.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
Give me a second. I will pull that up.
No
Someone else
worries.
go while I pull
Ryan,
that
go
up.
ahead.
Yeah. Let's go players first. I think the one thing that I'm most curious about, and I would have this question for both. So, but I'll think of another before we go to the next one. I would like to know, like, what is the biggest difference that they've seen across the spring and the summer with both of our new coordinators and how they've impacted practice, how they've impacted strategy, how they've impacted even just like culture and like how they feel about it. I'm because those are kind of 2 of the biggest changes that we've had from last year. And I'm interested to see how that's impacted like the players, but also the other coaches.
So it's Brent Venables, Jackson Arnold, Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman. Those are the 4
look at me, huh?
representatives that are coming, right? Good stuff.
I mean, that
Matt
makes the
might
most
have known.
sense.
Matt might have known and just didn't speak up. That's crazy. Anyway, I really like that one a lot, Ryan, because it gets to, okay, completely new voices. Well, not completely new with Seth Luttrell, but new voices are going to be calling the shots on both sides here. What does that mean to you? Like how does that change what you do? And Jackson Arnold learned the offense under Jeff Levy last year, right? So he'd be a great person to speak that into existence. Stutzman and Billy Bowman have been with now 3 defensive coordinators. They would be excellent,
Uh-oh.
Mark has frozen, and we have potentially lost Mark. We'll give him about 3 more seconds before I go ahead and chime in. My player who I would ask a question to would be Jackson Arnold. during the bowl game, we saw a lot of great things from Jackson, but one of his maybe weaknesses during the game was the game might have been a little too quick for him. We saw a lot of interceptions. What has he done in the offseason to prepare for a quick offense, or have they slowed it down? What have they done to make Jackson feel more comfortable coming into the SEC? That's probably what I would ask him.
Yeah. Great question. Great question. So if I'm going to flip it to the other side and ask the coaches and ask VV, I would really want to know, really, to get his insight about maybe some surprises that he's seen from spring and fall camp heading into summer. Maybe some players that we don't necessarily know about, but that they're seeing already a big impact during those practices and could have an impact on the year upcoming, whether that be one offensive player, one defensive player. I'd like to hear some of the guys maybe we haven't heard about that's really causing a nice spring in their step and that could potentially have some big playing time in this upcoming year. I'd like to hear maybe one or two names on either side of the ball that OU fans should be looking out for.
Yeah, it's a good point. I feel like we've been a bit more open about that in the past than we have this year after the spring game. There wasn't that, then both sides of the ball weren't pointing out Gavin Freeman and things like that. So that's a really interesting question again. And I hope, part of me hopes that change is going into the pressers starting in the season. Ryan?
Yeah, my question for the coaches is a question that I like to ask when I'm doing an interview at work. And it's like, what scares you? Like, what scares you about like this upcoming year? It's so new, so many changes. Like, what are you scared of? And I think that I don't know how you would answer that, because I think it's an interesting question, and that's why I always like to ask it, because it throws people off a little bit. But it's like, I feel like BV's the type who would be like, okay, this is like brand new for us, and like we're figuring things out as we go and we're improving, but we're still not there yet. And he'd be really honest about that. But I think I'd like to see that transparency a little bit, because we didn't have that in the previous coaching staff. So throw a little
curveball. Yeah, that was
curveball at him.
That would
question.
be a curveball. Also,
great
a
question.
brutal interview question, right?
It's the best.
That
though.
is tough.
It's
I
the
wouldn't even know
best.
how to answer
Like,
it.
you always should ask that though. If you're interviewing somebody, it's like, what scares you about this role? And it's like, boom. It's like, can they answer it? It's great.
Yeah, that's why you make the big bucks, man.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
Anyways, on that though, I think BV would either give you like an extremely honest answer to that,
No, it'd be
or
like
he
20
would
minutes.
twist it.
Yeah,
It'd be a 20-minute honest answer, or he'd twist it and be
or
pretty
he'd
quick.
deflect. But I don't think he would deflect.
No,
Like, I think Lincoln
no,
Riley
no.
would like deflect that question, right? And I think
Yeah.
BV would be like, you know what? I'm going to talk about this. And
Yeah.
like he'd talk about like, how the team, like how they've come together as a family and all of this stuff, and that they're scared that they're maybe not quite there yet. But they're getting there and they need to get out on the field. And I think it'd be a great answer probably, because he historically has great answers. But I do think it would kind of throw him a curveball. We can't let him be bored up there answering questions.
Yeah. Gotta throw him a little something.
I'm going to take it in a little different of a direction. I'm going to go to a different booth in this SEC Media Day, to Sarkisian. And I'm going to ask him, knowing that he only has one more win during his tenure at Texas than Tom Herman did, is he concerned about job security going into the SEC and potentially not going more than 8-4 this season? What do you think he'd answer that?
No, he's not concerned. Oh, that would be. I think that's how he would answer it.
Oh man, Pat, if you were there and you asked that, I wouldn't even know what to do with myself. Man, that'd be great. That'd be great. Unfortunately,
you would see Gann hiding in the background, just like.
Yeah, unfortunately, Texas has a much easier schedule than OU this year, but
they do.
They do. Well, guys, wow.
If
only Mark was here.
Yeah, I know. Wish Mark was here too. Would you guys go to any other booths besides OU's to ask a question to someone else, player or coach?
Would you go to Tennessee's, Patrick?
I would definitely ask Heupel a question about how he feels being the coach for Tennessee during Oklahoma's first SEC opener game, and like what Oklahoma means to him, and if he's just like reminiscing on anything, how he thinks that's going to be. I'd just like to hear his overall thoughts.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but I mean, There's definitely more of a soft spot in our heart than he hates us. In his
Yeah,
heart.
no, he doesn't hate us. It's just, it's more
I get it.
complicated than just like a love relationship.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who else would I go to? I think
would
I would like
definitely-
I would maybe go to Mississippi because I just would like to see Lane Kiffin like do his thing. So I don't know if I have like a question for him, but I just like would like to observe. So,
Matt?
Yeah, I would go over to the Alabama SEC Media Day and new head coach Kalen DeBoer, who came over from Washington, what his expectation his first year after trying to come behind one of, if not the best college head football coach in Nick Saban, and get his insight on how he's changing the culture, really to what we talked about earlier, asking BV, the shifts and all the coaching changes. I mean, you're talking about taking over a team that pretty much had a dynasty in winning, and especially national championships. So love to hear how DeBoer is handling that pressure and his expectation as the number one or the first season of a new Alabama regime.
Love that. Mark, welcome back.
Welcome back, Mark.
we did what would you ask a player on OU? What would you ask a coach or Brant Venables? And then if you would wander over to a different booth to find a player or a coach, what booth would you wander over to?
Yeah, so mine is a little OU centric. I'm gonna go with the last. I'm gonna start with the last one, but I'm gonna walk up to Josh Heupel's booth, and
Same.
we all know that there's
That's
we all
what
know
Pat
that
said.
there's a lot of, well, I don't know Pat's question, so I'm interested in this. We all know that there was a lot of animosity in the way that he left, right? Bob sends him out to pasture a little bit and brings in Lincoln Riley, who's incredibly successful as offensive coordinator, and parlays it into a head coaching gig. And you know what? If Josh Heupel was a little bit more successful at Oklahoma, you have to think he would have been the guy, right? And with all of that in mind, and knowing he probably has all of that intrinsically built in, you just go up to him and say, how do you get your team ready for a game that might be just another game for them, but has such built-in emotions and expectations and thoughts for you? Because while a lot of things change, the field and the stadium and the locker rooms sort of remain the same. You know, campus is the same. He has taken the ride from that airport to that campus more times than, you know, any non-player, non-longtime coach ever, right? Like that's just the way that it goes. And I'd be very interested to see what he would, I mean, you know, you'd have to give him real truth serum, right? You'd get a BS answer. But if it was a real answer, I'd be very interested to see what he had to say there. Pat, what was your question?
Pretty similar.
Pretty much the same
Pretty
thing.
similar.
You just worded it a lot better and nicer.
Yeah, more eloquently.
More
Nicer.
More eloquently is what the word.
How are
He
you
was a
mean?
little bit more direct.
Yeah,
He
it was
was
more
just
direct,
like,
just like about your feelings.
It's like,
and I didn't
hey,
bring
how
in
do you
like,
feel that OU's
Yeah.
are your first SEC opener or your SEC opener this year?
Mm.
and I didn't bring up any of the potential bad animosity
right,
either.
right.
Where that, you know, should be part of the question.
I guess, am I still like just the last
Yep, you're
person to
going,
go?
baby.
Everybody's
All right, cool.
everybody's
All right,
gone.
and let's go player then. And we know the three players. I announced them earlier. I want to go straight to Jackson Arnold, and I want to ask him, name me a receiver and a back that we're not thinking about that is going to be like
Great
a guy
question.
on this team.
Yeah.
And I mean, I imagine he'd list like 4 or 5, but again, with truth serum, who's the guy under the radar? Because it might be Andrell Anthony, man. He had such a rapport with Dylan Gabriel. And if he's getting first team reps with Jackson Arnold, it's not hard to see why he would get a rapport with Jackson Arnold, right? We just haven't been able to see that because he wasn't in spring ball. I'd be interested to see what he would say to that. I'd be interested in the running back question. I imagine it's Sam Franklin, the UTEP transfer that I've mentioned several times before, led the spring game in rushing. But I think the answer to that would be very illuminating to us as fans. What do we think about that?
Yeah.
And what did you guys say? Because I'm really interested.
When you said that, I thought, you know, Jackson would actually talk about younger players we hadn't heard of yet, not necessarily like transfers or past transfers. So I would hope he brings up Caleb Hicks.
Interesting. Right. sophomore, or I guess
Yeah.
redshirt freshman with just more muscle than anything else.
Yeah,
My
Mark,
main
Mark, Mark, I
question
had a
was,
similar question. Yeah.
You guys are so fun.
go
Ryan.
Matthew has
Well, you
left the scene.
heard my question. It was the player one was around the coordinators.
Oh, that's right. It was great. And
Mhm.
then Matt, I heard yours too, right?
Don't think so, but mine was very similar. I would ask BV to name some surprises that he's seen in spring and fall camp that we might not be hearing about on both sides of the ball. So very similar to what you asked.
That's really good. And I would just extend the same question that I ask Jackson to Brent Venables, because, or maybe I asked something more similar to what you asked Heupel. Like, you've been in these games, you've been in national championship games, your players have not. How do you prepare them for in Death Valley against LSU? And everyone's expecting LSU to be good this year, right? What do you do to bring it up a notch from how you prepared for going to Cincinnati? And you can act like you don't, but you're playing a different team in a different environment. So something has to change, or you really got to explain how you only put up so many points against Cincinnati last season.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, I say we move into MVPs then, baby.
MVPs.
Ryan, MVP of the week. Who you got?
Matt.
MVP,
Matt, are we
I
not
have
circling? Are we
No
not
circle.
circling?
I mean, there's no
No,
circles. Nothing.
there's no circles, no circling. We're in a dead zone.
The pitcher from Stanford got home or gets home from Japan soon, and we might have closer there. I would love that.
I saw Kinsey Hansen doing her thing, like chatting with her
Yeah,
and
because
all
they're
that
playing
stuff.
for they're
Love
playing for
that.
Team USA and all that. So
Mhm.
a lot of OU people on that squad, as you
There
can
are a lot
imagine.
of
That
OU
would be
people
the
on that
last
squad.
domino
That
of the
helps.
fall, and we've talked about this before. OU needs NC to be in that circle starting from next year. They need that ace pitcher. So if Natty Patty gets it, I mean, you might as well build 10 statues for Natty Patty by this is all said and done.
Love Patty.
That's a lot of statues,
Yep.
considering she's gotten one for what she's done before.
She doesn't even have one yet. We haven't built it.
Yeah, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's coming.
It's
coming.
you know it's coming. They've
Coming.
said it's coming. Like, I think
MVP.
Joe is. Oh
Yeah. No, he said I'm segueing. MVP. HBO's The House of the Dragon.
Interesting.
Just a wonderful episode of television that just premiered this past Sunday on July 7th. I'm not going to spoil anything for those who haven't seen it, but it felt on the highs of that episode. I felt the highs that I felt when Game of Thrones was so good. And I feel like they've really found their groove this season. I don't think it'll ever be as good as Game of Thrones was at its peak, but that's a really, really hard bar to even get close to. So, yeah, I think it was just a wonderful episode of TV, and the season itself has been really good. So, sorry if I stole that from you, Mark. Apologies.
No, you're great. I'm just gonna piggyback off of that because I have time, and this season has been really, really good. I couldn't really get into last season very well because of the time jumps and stuff
Too
that
many
happened in
time
season
jumps.
1. But this is the season where, like, hey, we've condensed the timeline. Everything's gonna happen over this much time for the rest of the show, and the show is really cooking now. I am very excited to see what happens with it. And it's interesting. It's not Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is different. Game of Thrones, we are cooking with these characters for a long, long time. We see them in real life situations. They are amongst the small folk a little bit differently than these guys are, or they're not supposed to be, right? It's Cersei and she looks down on them. But this, for what it is, this black versus green, let's see how it plays, is so good. And this episode was fantastic.
Dynamite.
I'll go ahead and give my MVP. I am going to go with.
I thought that was it.
He's
think
like,
that-
no.
and
He's
so
like,
I can
no.
give my own
I'm
now, right?
gonna talk more about Ryan's
Goddamn.
than he did, and then I'm gonna give my
Goddamn.
I'm just
Got it.
going to do one really fast. And then if I go missing, I promise you it wasn't of my own accord. I saw today that Boeing was found guilty of fraud in some kind
Peyton
of way.
Boeing.
No.
Matthew.
Sorry.
Oh,
You're gonna mention their name like 8 times.
I said Bowen.
No. And what's crazy is at least 2 lives had to be lost for that to happen.
It's crazy.
But we got them. And now we still need planes. So
Yeah,
not
it's gonna
enough
be
will
an
happen.
absolute mess.
Hey, you did a little bit of fraud, but come on. We
Team
need
Spirit,
your
Matthew.
planes.
Who is your MVP of the week?
I got 2. I'll make them quick. LVP to Oklahoma State head coach. If you saw my video, he was talking about Ollie Gordon's incident.
Oh yeah, this was
If
tough.
you'll understand if you watch the video. So quick LVP for him, but MVP to the Dallas Stars finally getting to an agreement to stream their games for free on their own TV service. They're getting
Meg
away
told me
from
this.
Bally. Thank goodness. And it's going to be called Victory Plus, where you can watch all the Stars game for free. Bally Sports had to be the absolute worst television streaming service. It has driven a thorn in my side for the Thunder, for the Stars, everything else in relation to the sports I love. This is a great step in the right direction. MVP to Victory Plus to watch the Dallas Stars.
Love it. My MVP of the week will be Mason Prince. Obviously, we need you as host. Thank you so much for tuning in today, everybody. Anything else before we close out?
No, you did great, Pat.
No,
I
you
don't
did
know what you're
great,
talking
Pat.
about.
Congratulations.
Absolutely.
I thought you did great.
No, I wasn't talking about me. I'm just saying we need him. We just need him.
Well, yeah, we could always do better. I mean, yeah.
Good pot. It's the off season. But what do you want from us?
Ryan, take us out.
Keep pushing it, baby.
Yeah, very good, guys. Very good. Hey, are my Dallas boys going to be here this weekend, or Mark? you
No
gotta
plugs. No social media. No,
There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.